What is going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel and welcome into Eye on Market. Happy Friday, everyone. And this is the first time I've actually done a market watch video in a couple weeks. I do feel like there's been a lack of movement on the market in terms of any dramatic swings. So my content has been kind of focused elsewhere. I know that it's not hard to find market watch content on YouTube. A lot of creators do it, and many bigger than me. But I did want to go ahead and just do like a little bit of a end of the year catch up on some of the market stuff before we move into the new year with the YCSs coming up and stuff, assuming they're not canceled or modified in some way. I do think you'll see some prices start to swing. Things could go in different directions depending on how top decks do. So that's the rationale behind this video today, talking about it. And yeah, we're going to jump right into it with today's Eye on Market. Okay, so Brothers of Legend, Maximum Gold have both dropped since the last time I made a market video. I believe that's it for the year. I don't think we have any more surprise product coming out unless there's something I'm not thinking of. But the year's only got a couple weeks left, and with the holiday season coming up, I just, in terms of like Christmas or whatever holiday you celebrate coming up, that's likely going to see a reduction, at least for a bit, in terms of spending as people put their money elsewhere. So I think it's pretty safe to say that right now the market is going to stay calm for a bit, but that doesn't necessarily mean there's a lot of great things to be throwing your money towards right now. One of the things I think is somewhat decent and interesting to look at is number 4, Stealth Kragen. So I say this obviously as someone who plays the Shark deck. This is a really good card, and I think it's actually really underrated, even where it's at value-wise, around $2. It's just such a good card for so many different options, and what it can do in terms of the attribute modification, the popping disruption, the fact that it's not a hard once per turn. It just has a lot going for it in a set that has a lot of secret rares that are just kind of valueless. And I think if we look at the way the previous Brothers of Legend / Battles of Legend sets have gone, a lot of secret rares that are good and unique to these sets do start to rise over time, and sometimes it doesn't take all that long. If you look at things like Draglubion and Utopia Kaiser from the previous set, you'll see that they just start to go up, and it just happens, and it would not shock me to see Stealth Kragen be like a $5 to $8 card, at some point in the first couple months of the new year. So I don't say that with the intent that you go out and buy a bunch, but I say that with the intent that if you intend on playing it, you might want to look towards having a copy or two, because I do think it could go up a lot from where it's at. If you look at the sales rate, you do see it is selling an absolute fuck metric. Ton of things going on here. A metric fuck ton, while English speaking can be tough sometimes. Especially over the past couple of days, it's just been selling like crazy. So just one of the cards I really wanted to point out here, I think Stealth Kragen is a really, really good option for anything that can make waters consistently, but it's especially good with the Shark decks, which I think is gaining a lot of traction and is worth keeping your eye out on. Speaking of other low-end pickups, Allure of Darkness Ultra Rare, another really, really hot selling card. It has been selling a ton over the past couple of days. People always want Allure. There are many, many copies of this on the market. There's over 170 of the Ultra, and as you know, infinite number of commons, it feels like. However, the Ultra is technically the mid-rarity. I know there's another Ultra from Phantom Darkness, but over the years, that has become increasingly difficult to get. So this is probably the best mid-rarity option for you, unless you have an ulti. And so it's just something to consider. I do think this will eventually sort of rise to the $5 range like most other copies of Allure have, if not a bit more. You'll notice that the Ultra from Phantom Darkness is significantly more money, but again, you have to take history into consideration there. That set's 13 years old, and it's one of the most iconic sets in Yu-Gi-Oh history, so there's just something to consider there. I just think with the way we've seen performance from all the other copies of Allure over time, there's no reason to think that the Ultra Rare is going to stay a card around $2. So you could pick up a playset for around $6, and that's a pretty solid deal in my opinion. Now, Astro Kuribo is a little bit higher in price at $6.50, but I do think it is a really, really good card, and you can see that it's not really slept on in the same way because it's got consistent sales rates, but there's also only 125 listings of this versus some of the other secrets that have a lot higher numbers. I think as people crack open this set, you're seeing people list these and try to make a sale, especially because it's more than just a penny stock in that regard, but I think overall it's a really, really good card to have. It has the novelty of being a Kuribo, which is just, cool for collectability's sake, but overall it's just a really good card that has a lot of utility, and it's a card I would definitely look to have, because if something does move up in this set value-wise, I think Astro Kuribo is a prime candidate to do that. The one I think is not Evil Hero Malicious Bane, a gorgeous secret rare, really solid pricing around 15. I think this is a decent price, and I think for the most part it's going to stay around that, unless it's double dip reprinted in Legendary Duelist Season 3, which we won't know for a bit. But I think $15 for a one-of is okay. I'd like to see it be a little cheaper, but the secret rare is by far the nicer of the two printings. And if we do get it in Legendary Duelist Season 3, I believe it will likely be a colored ultra rare. So this will technically be the highest rarity. It's definitely the nicest looking one, even if it won't be the most expensive, because of how shorted the ultras were out of the original set. And a Dusted Gold, another card that's really just a one-of, is around $16, give or take. Again, it's a one-of, so it's not going to be crazy expensive in comparison to like the ultra rare version of it, where it was its only printing and it was really hard to get. But this is shorted, it's not super common, and again, I think anywhere between $13 $15 is a decent price on this. If you're going to play the deck and you want to pick one up now, I think you could do worse than 16. I mean, it's a little bit high, but we don't know for sure if it's going to get a double dip reprint, and I think just biting, you know, I ordered one just to have, so if I decide I want to play the deck, I have it, and you really only use the one, so that's kind of the rationale behind it. Forbidden Droplet, really not moving at all. It's around $100. It's been about that since it came out. Kind of crazy that it's still that high, but it is shorted. The set's kind of hard to find. I do think we're going to need another reprint on this before it gets any type of traction in terms of the, you know, affordability range. But just the card is too good in the current game. It's a staple that is just increasingly hard to get. All three printings, as you know, are very, very scarce. Rise of the Duelist is expensive, and that set as a whole is hard to find. And the ulti is basically for people with deep pockets. So the secret rare from Brothers Legend is the budget option, quote unquote. But at $100, it's really anything but budget. And Magician Soul's at 45 or 43, close to it. Not bad. I'd like to see this go down a little bit more. I do hope they double dip this in Legendary Duelist Season 3. This is a really good card that it'd be cool just to be able to have a playset of at an affordable rate. It doesn't see play in everything, but it does see play in niche decks and has direct support coming out in Battles of Chaos. So this could go up if it doesn't get announced for another reprint. I think it'll be interesting to watch this one and see how it goes. It started out very high and has since kind of trickled down. $120 for a playset is certainly better than paying the $300 plus you were paying for a playset a couple months ago, but yeah, really, I'd say make your most informed decision on this that you can, because it is possible it gets another reprint, but it's also possible it spikes before that happens. Now, Magician's Souls is an interesting one, but so is Access Code Toggle from Maximum Gold. That's down to about $50, and it's nice to see it dropping as more waves of Gold Series come out. It's a good card. I was wrong. I thought this was going to hit 35. Kind of shocked that it didn't. And to put my money where my mouth is, I actually sold my extra copies for 35 on release because I figured I'd get ahead of it and try to recoup some value. Obviously, it didn't work out that way. It spiked quite a bit and then has started to trickle back down. I do think this should be like a $30 to $35 card overall, but it may be a while before we get there. And it's just a really good card that is extremely useful against the meta and so easy to make in so many different decks. I guess I'll take the L on that one, but it's been interesting to see that direction that it's taken. Pot of Extravagance from Gold Series looks like it's down to about $12, give or take. Not a bad price. If they were 10s, I'd say definitely grab a playset if you don't have the card already. $30 for a playset. We know it'll age well. I think it's going to need another reprint before that price really cools off, and maybe a common in the ALBAZ structure deck if they don't take it out. That would be a cool hit for it to get, you know, another price drop. Verte Anaconda around 11. I think people are afraid of Banlist spheres for this. I'm hoping they don't hit it. I don't expect that they will, especially with Fusion Destiny getting a reprint, Dragoon just getting a reprint, and even this card just coming out about a month ago with its reprint, but we'll wait and see what happens. I do think Verte for like $10 is a pretty good price just to have one. If it doesn't get hit, it's going to be a staple, obviously, for any decks that are playing either the DPE package or the Dragoon package, so you're going to want to have it, and I don't think it's going to get banned, but maybe. I mean, I don't see it personally, but maybe I'll be wrong. And Invocation is really cheap right now, around $5, which is crazy. I do think that's going to be a bottom out price for this. If it goes any lower than $5, I think they're really worth picking up. We've seen Invocation just go up over time in copies, but this is the first non-short print version, so maybe it'll sort of stick. I guess we're going to have to wait and see, but overall, it's really good to see this card be affordable, and you do have your pick of different rarities, whatever your preferences are if you're looking for higher rarity stuff, but I think Invocation is sort of taking a back seat to some of the other Fusion cards, specifically with branded Fusion coming out, as Allure, the Jester of Despia, is around $75. Now, someone has a couple listed at $60, which is a really good deal, but if you look at the sold listings, a bunch have sold above $70, so it's interesting. This card searches branded Branded Fusion. I always thought it was a good card. This has basically gone to another level with that Branded Fusion reveal from the ALBAZ deck. I just think you really want to just look at the fact that I don't think this has a reprint on the horizon until at least the Megatins, unless they slotted in something unexpectedly. It'd be cool if they, like, put it in the ALBAZ structure deck, I guess, as a common, but I don't see that happening when there's money to be made off of it. Yeah, Allure in general has seen a big bump up, but so has Branded Opening, which is really interesting. This is a good card too. It's a super rare from Dona Majesty. They are around $3. Sorry, I was looking at the direct by TCG player. This is a really good card that tutors directly from the deck. This gets you access to your Allure easily, and then you can search your Branded Fusion, and it locks you into fusion summoning, but the deck's typically doing that anyway. So if you had this in bulk, you might have a couple bucks that you didn't know you had. It's a really solid value, super rare, especially when most super rares don't have a ton of value anymore from newer sets. And Branded in White is another one. This is a spell that's being bought out pretty quickly. It's basically a Miracle Fusion. You banish from grave to summon as long as you're using ALBAZ's material, so you can, like, double dip into a Dragoon or make something else. Really, really solid, and I do expect this to be in the ALBAZ deck, so unless you want a foil version, I wouldn't worry about it too much. Branded Opening, though, I'm not sure if that's going to fall into the deck. And Albion the Branded Dragon is in the deck in the OCG. I don't know whether or not it's going to be in there here. Right now, this is the only Branded Fusion that doesn't have a reprint up to this point. Everything else was, like, in the Megatins, so this is, you know, the price has gone up as expected. $15 for an Ultra. I think it's a one-of, so it's not the worst price ever. Basically, this is what helps you to go into Red Eyes Dark Dragoon easily, and it's just an insanely powerful card that can do a whole lot of things for you and for the deck. Lightning Overdrive needs the value, so it's definitely not bad to see this up, but obviously, hopefully you guys got it earlier rather than later, so you're not having to pay these premium prices on it. Speaking of premium prices, Utopic Draco Future is up to about $35 and moving pretty quick with sales almost at $50. This is from King's Court. King's Court is going to age as well, not as well as Toon Chaos, but age well similar to Toon Chaos, where it's a TCG exclusive set. It's got a lot of legacy support, and this is a card that's exclusive to that set. I talked about this card when it was 15 being a good pickup. As you guys can see here, that has panned out pretty well. It might go up even more than that, though, unless a reprint is on the horizon, but with a increasing market price and sales dwindling, I'd say just sort of keep your options open, but make sure you have this card because a lot of decks are going to be utilizing it. Xyz Remora is a common, as you guys know, from the Shark deck. It is really, really solid, and it's in Cosmo Blazer with no other reprints. It's about $5, give or take, for the near mint first edition copies. And it's a card that I actually found in bulk at my locals. I picked up a small stack a while back, and I'm talking about like maybe 6 to 7 months ago, for about 25 cents each, so I have some extras. Debating listing them, but I don't know. I'm curious where it's going to go. I'd like to see this get a super rare reprint and an OTS. That would be an awesome foil upgrade, but we'll see what happens. Overall, it's a really good card, and it's definitely worth it. You know, worth the value that it has just because of how good it really is for the deck and how it enables the deck to play. Elder Entity Intis is up even more, about $7 to $8, and I think it has a gold rare as well, which is around the same price. So interesting to see this getting more popularity and traction. I know that a lot of the Drytron decks and other decks that play into your Servant, Dogmatic and Punishment utilize this, but it's interesting to see this spike now. This could use another reprint too. I don't know where, but put it as a common in an OTS, I guess, and it'll at least help to drop the price down a bit. A couple of quick notes I wanted to touch on. People are talking about Imperial Order a ton. You guys saw my video last week on this. I think people wanted to get hit. I don't necessarily agree with that stance, but if it does, you might see people start to look towards Anti-Spell Fragrance. I think either way, especially if Sky Striker gets more popular, Anti-Spell might make more of a resurgence, and the Dual Devastator one is readily available with a decent number of listings. It also has a common version, but I think the common is from an OT or a Turbo Pack, so it's going to be a lot less easy to get. But there are cheap copies of Anti-Spell Fragrance. I would just say make sure you have a playset of this, because if people start to pivot towards this, this card in the past has gone up, and I think will follow that same trajectory. There are not many easily accessible versions of this card, even the Zombie Horde Structure Deck version. As you know, the Zombie Horde decks are really tough to find, and they are out of print, so unless you get lucky, you're not going to have those. Fusion Destiny Ultra Rare is up to $25. Completely crazy, but also I talked about this card when it was 5, when it was 10, when it was 12, when it was 16. So not to toot my own horn, but I was sort of on the topic with this card. I do think it is just insanely good. I think knowing that it's getting that ulti reprint is going to pretty much mean it's safe from getting banned, at least right now, even though it did get banned in the OCG, and it's just, there's not too much to say about it beyond that. this is just a card that you should probably have picked up when it was cheaper, because now if you're going to be playing the DPE package, you do need this, and its Dark Neostorm variant, or alternate, whatever you want to call it, is not much cheaper. And finally, for today's video, this went a little longer than I wanted regardless. Thunder Dragon Colossus card I wanted to touch on quickly. As Banlist season approaches, a lot of times people start to get hype about certain cards coming back. This Colossus is really cheap for the Ultra. I think the lowest listing here is somewhere around $2, so if you're interested in having that on the possibility that it does come back, you can get it really affordably right now. The ulti is really high, and the secret's pretty high too. I don't know whether or not Colossus is going to come back. I don't have, like, a time machine that allows me to see into the future, but I do think it could and should come to one, and if it does, it's natural to assume that the price will go up. This is almost 2 years old now, so there's no reason to think that it's not going to see a bump in value as a result. That's going to do it for today's Market Watch. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll catch you in the next video. Peace.